If your relationships are not the most important thing to you, then everything else will fall away. Everything else will feel like a waste of time because the only thing that matters in this life is relationships. It's the only thing you take with you after this life. It's the only thing.
What's up, guys? I'm Austin.
I'm Colin.
And I'm Sean. Welcome to the Three Cheese Podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Three Cheese Podcast. We're taking a deep dive with entrepreneurs into the bold and risky leaps of faith that were pivotal on their journeys to where they are today. Today's guest is Britt Ellsworth, a fiercely confident dreamer, scriptwriter, and ad buyer who manages millions of dollars in ad spend a year. She's an expert in marketing and has long managed a full work week while also spending plenty of time with her family of 5 at home. In this episode, she tells us the secrets to her ad buying success, how she finds balance at home, and the inspiring story of how she achieved her dream of building a home on 100 acres in rural Tennessee. Please rate, review, and subscribe and enjoy this episode of the Three Cheese Podcast. Welcome to the Three Cheese Podcast. Today we are super excited. We have Britt Ellsworth on. Wait, the crowd noise. There we go. All right, Britt, tell us a little bit kind of who you are and like give us a basic description, if you can, of kind of like the businesses you've been involved in.
Oh, okay. So the reason that you say that is because I am a multipotentialite, which means I can't just do one thing. I have to do all the things. And so, yes, my name is Britt Ellsworth. I moved my family across the country. We bought an Amish house on 100 acres. With the goal of growing 100% of our own food. I started my own marketing business. I also write and ad buy for a company called Harmon Brothers, who are the authors and producers of the internet's largest ads like Squatty Potty, Purple Mattress. I do a lot of business strategy. Yeah, is that?
Yeah, that's sufficient. Although I do need you to define multipotentialite because I've never heard that before.
So when you were a kid, and what was the most common question that you would get?
What do you want to be when you grow up?
What do you want to be when you grow up, right? Like, and you couldn't say everything. You had to be one thing.
Right.
Oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, good, Johnny. That's very good. Oh, you'll be a great doctor, right? I don't want to be one thing when I grow up, right? I want to be all the things. I legit want to go to medical school. I want to start my own like natural supplement company. I want, like, my husband and I are starting our own hunting company. Like just all the things. I actually do want to learn how to produce video and kind of do that for my clients, I think someday, or at least understand the principles behind it so I can help other people do it with me or help, you know what I mean? Like there's just so many things I want to do with my life. I would love to be a sex therapist someday. Like I think that would be super exciting.
That is exciting.
Not in a weird way.
No, I mean,
maybe
it would
also
be
in a weird way. I don't know.
It would be exciting. So, would you say that there is something kind of maybe you don't like the idea that we ask that child? Like we always kind of feel like. Do you feel like America puts kids in a box like that? I'm just curious because you act like we shouldn't be asking our kids that question.
And is there a problem with being a?
Right.
What is it again?
Multipotentialite.
Sorry, that's hard to say.
So I really feel like there's room in this world for everyone, right? But I think in general, a culture will build the ideal, right? And the ideal, especially considering our history as Americans, the Industrial Revolution, everything is, we want people to be really, really, really good at one thing, right? Because that serves our economy the most, right?
Right.
And so we do, I think, not necessarily on purpose, but we train children to have this idea of you grow up and you become one thing and you do that thing for your whole life and you become really good at that one thing, right?
Right.
But not everybody's built that way. And there's not a ton of room for people who aren't built that way in the system, but that doesn't mean that they can't thrive in the system. In fact, there's a lot of ways to thrive because of the system, because everyone expects you to do one thing. So that's what we say to each other, right? Like, well, that's what we say to men, right? What do you do for work?
Yeah.
And it's like one thing, right? But they don't expect you to go off on, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. But when somebody does, man, are they all of a sudden put on a pedestal? Like you were talking about, a former guest of yours, say, built 5 companies. They're all different types of companies, right? And we're like, whoa, how do they do that? Well, they do that because they don't work within the system that they've been handed. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's really interesting. I feel that I have personally struggled, and it's pushed me into that almost like imposter syndrome type like mentality at times, because I feel like I haven't been able to fit in any one role. Like I've always joked, like I'm a, what's the quote? Jack of all trades, master of none. Like I have all these skill sets, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm not like specialized in one of them. Because I look at you and I'm like, man, you are a phenomenal ad buyer. The last time we had a conversation, you're like, I'm gonna be the best ad buyer in the world. And it's like, you're great at that. It's like, I don't have that one thing that I'm really, really good at, but I can figure anything out. And I feel like I have put myself kind of in a box trying to figure out how to specialize in something and how to be good at something. And over the last few years, especially with these guys, it's been like, okay, like, well, you know, Austin's favorite quote, the world is your oyster. And it's like, I've really tried to open up my mind to, okay, well, like, where do I fit? You know, I feel like I've been trying to put like my square peg in a round hole, and it's like, I don't fit there. So that's interesting.
Well, I think it's important to kind of own yourself. So instead of looking at other people's opinions of you as more important than what you feel inside, understanding that what you have inside is the way that you need to live your life, because you're the only one living your life. And what other people think is maybe like a factor. Maybe like, okay, that's the way that you see it, and that's awesome. And I love that you see it that way, but that's not necessarily the way that I see it. And so it opens up so much potential in your life when you own yourself, when you belong to yourself, and you don't belong to society, you don't belong to a person, you don't belong to a company, you're not owned, you own yourself.
It's funny, our guest that we had on earlier this week, she said, you know, what do the 3 letters N, O, and W spell? And we all kind of like rattle off our own, like, one, now, own. And she's like, yeah, she's like, you have to own your now, so later on you will have won. And she was just talking really about like owning, you know, kind of like where you are, who you are, the gifts you have, like the blessings you have, like the opportunities that are in front of you, like own that right now and enjoy it and like lean into it. So later on you can have won.
Absolutely.
That was really profound.
So I think this is a good segue to what I had as the next question. You are talking about being kind of this, like having all of these different things that you're good at or interested in and pursuing them in a business. However, you were working for like a large agency to a degree,
Absolutely.
Which I think a lot of people go, if I work here, I have to stay only here.
Yep.
And this is the path. It's a good job. It's, you know, kind of in the vein of what I like to do. So I just stay here and make my money and support my family. And that's the end of life. But you've done it differently.
Absolutely.
You explain to me a little bit about that. Like you worked for them and then you made your own thing. How did this whole thing come about to where you are now with still working for them, but also doing all these other things?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to start a little bit before that. I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 or 9 years, and we really struggled financially. It was very hard. I found something that I really loved. I found some form of marketing that I had never heard of, and I really got really deep into. And I decided that I was going to go get a job. I was going to go get a 40-hour-a-week job, which going from a stay-at-home mom to a full-time job, it's a complete shift. I remember going in, I got the job, and I went into the office, and then they were like, oh, we're having a meeting. And I was like, okay, like whatever, like, sure, I'll go into this room with you. And they're all sitting around like, okay, this is our procedure. This is what we do when this happens. And I'm going like, is anyone else seeing this? Like, you guys are so high on yourselves. Like, this is the stupidest thing. You have to have a meeting to talk about this crap. Like, just write it in an email. Like, why are we all sitting around talking like this? And it was because, like, I was not in corporate culture. Like, I was not. And I was like, efficiency, right? But corporate culture is, you're going to see me the way I want to be seen. You're going to see me as your boss. Right? Just so stupid, right?
I love that you're passionate about this. Okay.
So I get this full-time job and I work it, and it is a mill. The business model is give as many clients to each individual rep as possible so that we can take on as many clients as we can. And the reps are paid on salary with a bonus, right? So my book of business, the amount of money I made the company every month was $22,000, and I would take home $4,500, and then my bonus was approximately $1,000. And so you can see how profitable this is, right? This is massively profitable for the company, but it causes major burnout for the reps. And so I hit a point where I was like, I was crying every day. I was like, I can't do this. I felt so much responsibility for the results of these clients. And my bosses were like, meh. It feels really cool to say, yeah, I work for Harmon Brothers. But the reality is my husband went to college with the CEO. And so we went out to dinner, and he was like, oh, Britt, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm an ad buyer. And they were hiring at that time. And so they were like, oh, he was like, oh, what kind of ad spend do you spend? You know, what kind of ad spend are you doing monthly?
That's like the question when you get
It's according
so,
to
how much money are you handling at this hour?
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
$50. Wow.
How much were you at the time?
So at that time, it was about $50,000 a month.
Okay.
Which I look back on it and I'm like, I can't believe I had 22 clients and I was only spending $50,000 a month.
Because comparable today, it's something like what?
Because now I'm spending $300, $400, sometimes $500,000 a month. You know, I'm really good at spending other people's money. I love to tell people, yeah, I've spent over $6 million on Facebook, but nothing for myself.
So what happens at the Harmon Brothers? Because you did some pretty cool things. Talk about those just real quick.
So I started off as an ad buyer. I just kind of got, that's what I was doing at my previous agency. So I just kind of jumped in. And so they call them creative directors. Creative directors are the people that basically oversee an entire project from beginning to end. And there's this creative director, and she's younger than me. She is full of passion in life. And we had some pretty deep conversations, but she came to me kind of like out of the blue, and she was like, hey, I really like the way you think about this one thing. Do you want to write for me? And I picked my jaw up off the floor. I couldn't believe it, because I'd never written anything except spec scripts. And I was like, absolutely. And that started my other track at Harmon Brothers, where I wrote on these ads that get millions of dollars to spend behind them. And that was just such a cool thing, because as an ad buyer, like, you are handed creative and you're told, go make it work.
Right.
And you have certain levers that you can pull, but there's some you can't. You can't change the content of the videos, right? So to be able to influence the content of the videos was just such an amazing thing. To come to the table saying, hey, this is generally what I see working on Facebook. Let's recreate it a slightly different way, make it ours, and hopefully it'll perform better, and that was a really, really cool part of my career. So I am a Christian. I absolutely feel like we have a responsibility to develop our relationship with God. And part of my journey in that is asking God to guide my life, but not in a passive way, in a very active way. So, like, in my experience, it's like, I'm gonna go out and do this thing, Heavenly Father, and if I'm not supposed to do it, help me understand that I'm not supposed to do it. Otherwise, I'm doing this thing, right? I basically found this job and I applied and I went and I got interviewed and I was extended an offer and I freaked out. Like my heart freaked out because I was like, wait a minute, this is my whole, and I'm not proud of it, but my whole identity was I'm a stay-at-home mom. My kids are my life. And it's really hard not to have that because from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to bed and then during the night, you are serving these kids all the time. Like that is what you do. And so I freaked out. I was like, what are my kids going to do without me? Right. Which I think a lot of moms get really caught up in that and they don't think about what it is like from their kids' perspective, about the people that will come into their kids' lives when they're not there kind of sheltering them. Right. So I told the person that extended me the job offer, I was like, no, I'm not going to take it. And then he came back and he offered me another $10,000 a year. And I was like, well, now what do I do?
Well,
So I went back to my knees and I said, the things have changed. The thing that I thought I wanted is now different. And I just felt really strongly that this was the right move, that I should do this. And the amount of confidence that I gained from feeling like God had my back on this, it allowed me to make this massive change and feel like everything was going to be okay, even though I had no idea how it was going to be okay.
right. I think we've heard that multiple times so far. People say like, I'm going to keep going this road. God, if this isn't what you want me to be doing, please let me know.
Yep.
And it's a little bit harder when it's family involved. Like when it's not, if it was just you and your husband, it's a little bit easier. It's like, I'm going. Hey, see you later.
See ya.
Bye. See you when I get home. But when you have 4 kids, it's like you're not thinking for yourself. But I love that you were able to go, no, like this is still what I believe is
The best thing.
The best thing that God put on my heart. And I'm going to do it, even though I have 4 kids. And they're going to see that example and go do it themselves, which is probably going to put them in the best position to succeed later in life.
Yeah, I have 2 daughters. And I think one of the biggest things that's come for them is they know that their mommy is doing the things that she's passionate about. In the Christian church, like patriarchy can be like kind of a bad word, right? Like, don't talk about it. Don't think about it. It's not really there, but it is. And it affects men just as much as it affects women, right? The patriarchy is a system that's set up by men that serves men best, right? And I think it makes perfect sense. Like if you're going to set up a system, you're going to make it work for you, right? But the problem with that is that when you set up a system for all and you don't include all in the way that it serves people, there are people who lose, right? There are winners and there are losers, right? And in a patriarchal system, and I even say this within like, a Christianity, Christianity is set up to be they call it a benevolent patriarchy. You heard that word?
I've heard the word benevolent, but not in that context.
So a benevolent patriarchy is where men make decisions in the best interest of women, right? And it sounds kind of nice, right? It sounds like we're taking care of women, right? Really what you're saying is you can't make decisions for yourself. We need to make them for you. You can't think. We need to think for you. You don't worry about it. We'll take care of it, right? It strips the power from women. And the hardest part about it is the majority of women have bought into this system. Do you know what Stockholm Syndrome is?
I believe I've heard it once, but I don't remember the definition.
I'm just going to take a stab at it. Is that when
go for
you're a captive, you're a prisoner, and No, you're a prisoner, and you start to build a relationship with your captors, or
you empathize with your captors.
you empathize with your
Almost
captors.
give them a
Okay,
reason to kind of
Exactly. You make excuses for them. You understand where they're coming from so much that you believe in your captivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
wow.
So it happens kind of that way, right? Like, I'm a woman. I have been taught that I can't make decisions. I have to be taken care of. Well, where do you go from there? How do you own your own life? How do you belong to yourself if you are not smart enough to make your own decisions, to take care of yourself, to you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it hurts a subset of humanity when we put all the power and all the decision making with one part.
Yeah.
Historically, women have been dependent on men, right? And so dependent for food, for shelter, for money, for all these things, right? For your survival. And so if the way your brain works, if the person that is providing for you is displeased with you, then that threatens your survival, right? And so it's deep, deep, deep in the way that women think, to make sure that other people around them are happy, right? Because it ensures their survival. But that mechanism keeps women from doing the things that they should do in their lives. It keeps them from being themselves. That I heard a quote today from Brene Brown. It said, "The fitting in is the opposite of belonging." And
Interesting. That is mind blowing.
yeah, so fitting in is changing yourself to align with the people around you, right? Belonging is the people around you accepting you exactly who you are.
Yeah, that's
Right?
big.
I like that.
Totally
That's
different, right? And so I think as women, it's a lot more natural for us to try to fit in because we have that survival mechanism of if we're not accepted, if we're not part of, if people aren't pleased with us, it threatens our survival, right? But you have to be able to overcome that. And I think it kind of comes with age, it kind of comes with maturity. But you have to recognize that I don't have to get everybody on board with what I'm doing. I just have to do it, right?
And I'm going to say that it also, the change comes with examples like you out here talking about it and how you've had to take these hard, shifts in your brain, shifts in your literally deep down rooted things and say like, no, I believe that I was meant for more and this and go for it.
Yeah,
Because we can all have those thoughts, but it's a different baby to actually take the leap. And you did it.
absolutely.
So congratulations for doing that. And that's awesome. And we're happy, so happy you're here to be able to talk about this. So you're at Harmon Brothers, you're managing these, you're writing for these ads that are making millions of dollars for companies, you're ad buying, just killing it. What shifts, because you're here in Tennessee, you have other clients, like what shifts, like where does this story go from here?
So we always had the dream to move to Tennessee, to buy 100 acres, to raise all our own food, and to homeschool our kids. I know, it's kind of a very particular dream, right? But we just lived and breathed this dream. We talked about it every day.
Wow.
We would take out maps. We would pull up maps on
I love that.
on the computer, and we would say, what about here or what about there? We would look at the weather patterns. We would look at the population density. We would look at so many things, like property values here versus there. And we lived and breathed this dream. I mean, I cut out so many magazine articles, or I would send articles about raising chickens and about building barns and things to my husband. And he would do the same with me. Like he loves this. This is his dream just as much as it's my dream, which is really, it's helped us form a stronger bond. And we just honestly, like, everything we did was through the lens of how are we going to get to it?
That's some serious
Cool.
intentionality.
Yes.
How like when you started thinking about this was it kind of like this dream is far off, but let's like aim real high for what we really want? Or was it like, this is pretty close to what we can achieve soon, if that makes sense? Because like I like to personally, just like I look at like Teslas online or something, and I'll be like, man, that cherry red Tesla, like I can't afford it right now, but that's just something I like to aim for, and it almost like makes you more concentrated to a point.
Absolutely. So I learned a long time ago that you have to frame your thoughts as if the things that you want, you've already achieved. And so, so we would even go so far as to, we would lay in bed at night and we would say, I have to get up and go feed the chickens. And, you know, tomorrow I'm putting the posts in for the fence. And we were living in this postage size yard, tiny little 70s house that we absolutely hated. And we would just live this dream. And I don't think that we ever felt like it was so far away, you know. And the opportunity came when in the middle of the pandemic, right? Nobody was moving at that point. Like nobody could show houses. No, like you had to do virtual showings, right? And because of the industry and because of the changes that the pandemic brought, I was able to get a down payment together. And at the moment that hit our bank account, in fact, even before it hit our bank account, we'd already put an offer on the house.
Had you seen the house?
Yes.
You flew down here,
Yep.
saw it, went, this is the dream?
Yep.
This is
Because we knew the check was coming, and we booked the flight, and we came and we looked at several houses, but we knew which one we wanted, and it was like you couldn't see houses. Suddenly that ban was lifted. We were on a plane like that next weekend, and we saw all the houses, and we put an offer on that weekend.
100 acres?
100 acres, 103.
And you had thought you wanted 100.
Yeah.
And it was 103.
Yeah.
I love the way God works. It's like, all right, well, how about 3 more?
I also love the idea that your dream is so far from, I think, a dream of mine. I am never going to sit in my bed and go, I cannot wait to feed the chickens.
Well, and so another quote I'll throw at you. Your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts.
Absolutely.
I heard that not too long ago,
Absolutely.
and I thought that was a really like profound thing. It's like, okay, what do I want in my life? Like, what do I need to reevaluate? Like, what are the things that I think about the most, and what direction is that going? Because does it end up is it going in the direction that I think I want to end up, or at least this part of my life, and just trying to like rethink about those things and put my mind in a place that goes, you know, to more of my passions and purpose.
If you don't think about the things that you want, other people will build your life for you. Like, and we're taught this is the way. The way is go to high school, go to college, get a good job.
Work there 40.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Work at the same company. I mean, that's kind of the ideal. It's not what people do, right? But, get a good job. Is that not
support your family?
That trope. Get a good job.
I think the way I was raised was my parents, it was like, we're going to protect me from making any mistakes, right? It was like, we're going to like find the best path for me to not make any mistakes along the way, which meant like I'm going to college. I have to go to college and I have to get a good job with that college degree or whatever. And that was like, so that you can have money to support yourself and raise a family and everything. And the funny thing about when we got started before we met Sean was like, we had this crazy idea of starting a company, and it was like, because my parents were like, we paid all this money for like a safe route of like not making mistakes. And the entrepreneurial journey is like so full of mistakes all the time,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that was a big way of like breaking off of like this straight and narrow path that had always been created, generationally since, 100 years ago or whatever. Like
that plays right into your parents were telling you something that would validate them, right? Your parents were saying, go to school and get a good job because then I know that you're taken care of. And that's a reflection of me as a parent, right? And they're also saying, don't make any mistakes. Mm-hmm. They're saying, go to school and take the shortcut to a good job so that you're never going to make mistakes, because mistakes are painful.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see you get hurt.
Exactly.
Like, it's born out of like a good spot, but
is it?
Well,
is it?
I think we think it is.
I challenge that because it doesn't serve the child. It serves the parent, right? Like,
but I think as humans, we literally are so twisted. We don't understand. We don't even know what is us and what is. We don't know. We don't know ourselves at all. We don't take the time to learn ourselves. So everything we do, we never even take a look at what the reason was why we did it.
Yes.
Like deep down, they're like, I'm just trying to like protect you, even though from an outside perspective, you might go, that's not the right thing, you know?
Absolutely.
And I mean, they supported me tremendously throughout my childhood as far as my like creative endeavors and things like that, and always supported my decisions and everything. But there was like this, when I said, hey, this like $40,000 I spent going to Belmont University, like I'm going to put that in the closet and start a business instead, making videos. It's like red flag, you know?
I'm curious because, you know, you've done lots of businesses. You've started lots of things. What was the word that you used?
Multipotentialite.
That's going to be a hard one for me to remember.
No, I can't remember.
Multipotentialite.
Multi-politician.
But it seems to me like you had this kind of like entrepreneurial like gut feel, like you wanted to be able to do more than just the typical like, you know, go get a job type thing. Like, where do you think that was born from, this entrepreneurial like drive? You know, is there somebody that was in your life, like your parents or a mentor? Like, how did this whole thing develop for you?
That's a really good question. My parents are entrepreneurs.
What do they do?
My dad is a dentist, and my mom runs the office. She is the brains. Not that my dad's not smart. He's brilliant, but my mom runs the business side of the dental office. And so I grew up understanding that business is life. You know, I grew up understanding that that's where you can be creative. That's where you can live your life bigger than just the monotony of laundry and dinner and stuff. And so I don't know that I ever was particularly like, I want to be an entrepreneur, or even if I knew that word.
Right.
But I knew that business was life. I knew that that was the excitement of life. And I still feel that way.
Yeah.
How did you really make this? So how did you transition from working pretty much full time in an agency to owning 100-acre farm and actually being able to be your own boss to a degree?
Mm-hmm. Well, I still work for the Harmon Brothers. I just am in a different role now, a role that is much more independent. So I'm able to take on a lot of client load on the side. But what happened was I was just working normal, and a client that I had previously came to me and said, hey, you know, do you do anything on the side, not through the agencies that you work with? And it was a completely different brand. So I wasn't like, you know, going against any contracts or anything like that. And I was like, well, sure. I mean, it was very small. It was a very small engagement. So I started doing some work for them and just kind of get more integrated with their business. And I made a big mistake, like an enormous mistake. They had me turn off one of the brands that I was working on, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's an oversight on my end or if I had a rule set up, but it didn't turn off, and I ended up spending $6,000 of their money, and they had no idea, and I had no idea, and they were like, what, you know, this is not okay, and I was like, this is not okay.
And you turned around.
And you're like, well, see ya.
No. So what I did, and I I only share this because I want people to feel the full weight of the responsibility of this. I said, we're taking this out of my pay. I'm not going to ask you to make up for my mistake. And it's going to probably take me a couple months to pay this off.
That's a lot.
And they said, we'll work something out. And what ended up happening was they took half out of my pay. And from then on, they and I have been so loyal to each other because we know it's not, he did it, she did it, they did it.
Yeah,
It wasn't
blame
me.
shifting.
It wasn't me, right? And I think that if you want trust, you have to take full responsibility for everything you do. And that was a big lesson for me in gaining trust, because growing up in an entrepreneurial family, like, you don't have anybody to blame. If your business is failing, it's not anybody else's fault. It's your fault, right? And so that was just kind of, that's how we operated. And seeing their reaction to that and the bond that it formed, it cemented in my mind, like, if you have to take 100% responsibility for the things you do and the things you don't do, right?
That's a big one. I don't think people talk about that. It's like, well, I didn't do it.
It's like, well, you got to do it.
Should have done it.
Right.
I think that's the hardest part about entrepreneurship is, like, if it doesn't happen, it's your fault.
Exactly.
Who else are you going to blame?
Exactly. And I think there's a little part of us that is always trying to get out of it. There's a little part of us that's like, I know this is going to be really hard and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's what Mignon was saying the other day. Like, a lot of people are not necessarily afraid of failure. They're actually afraid of success because they know what's going to have to come with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of hate that phrase, like, afraid of success, because no one's actually afraid of success. What they're afraid of is the work. And so you have to do some soul searching, like, am I afraid of the work? Why am I afraid of the work? If I am. If I'm not, am I doing absolutely everything I can? Am I prioritizing this, to the most extreme extent I can, and to keep my relationships healthy at the same time?
I think there's a lot of things where we know, like, we will be successful if we do this, but the work to get there is going to be tremendous. I mean, a video that we're planning on putting out in a little short while is one of those where, like, we know this is going to do well, but it's like, man, this is going to be a lot of work.
Uphill.
It is a lot. So it's like,
I feel like I've been trying to get this video to come out for like a year and a half.
Yeah. And we're always like, yeah, we'll do it. And we are.
But I think it's also important, and it's actually a good skill as you grow, is you can look at things and you don't just look at the carrot at the end. You can look at the whole picture and go, is it worth it? Sure, that's fun. But is this whole road worth it? And can I keep my relationships healthy if we go down this route?
Exactly.
Can we keep our business intact if we go down this route? Can I spend the time that this needs to get that carrot as a full-blown carrot that I want and still keep my life and my relationships healthy? And that's a lens that you gain when you make mistakes over time.
Yeah.
Mistakes.
Yes.
Mistakes. Mistakes that you wouldn't have made if you were trying to live a perfect life.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, I love learning from my mistakes. And I'm like, I try to tell my kids a lot. I'm like, I don't expect you to be perfect, but I expect for you, when you fail, to get up
To learn
and
from
move.
it. Yep.
Move from it and learn from it, and just continue to do the next best right thing. Like, don't allow that mistake to cripple you. Because I'm still proud of you. I still love you. I still think you can do whatever you put your mindset to, like, go.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing what's happening. And I'm seeing, like, being able to speak that intentionality in them and how they take that and do something with it. And it's amazing.
The power that you hold as a parent, you can't understand. Believing in your children is one of the most important things you can do. To hand their sovereignty back to them and say, I love you no matter what you do, and you are living your own life. It's not my life, it's your life. and I'm going to love you no matter what you do. Like, you are giving them the full weight of responsibility for becoming who they need to become, who they are that
Not
isn't
who we
realized
want them to
yet.
become.
Not who we want them to be.
Right.
Who they need to become. And they feel that. And maybe not right away, and maybe not in the structure that we want. But we have to take this rope off of our children's necks, that this rope of be like me, do what I would do. It's too much. It's too heavy for them. They can't do it, and they will let you down because they're not you.
Do you have some experiences that you're so passionate about this, and I love it? Like I love hearing how strong you are on these things. Why? Where did that form? Because it feels like you've had experiences that have driven you to like speak so strongly on this.
I honestly never felt like my parents thought that I should do what they do.
Right.
In fact, one time I asked my dad, I think I was probably like 10, my dad, should I be a dentist? And he was like, no, I don't think so. I don't know if that's because dentists have the highest suicide rate of any job, but or if it's because I'm not very detail oriented, but I don't think I ever felt like they felt like I should be them. And but I did feel like it goes back to that question, right? What are you going to be when you grow up? Like, and for women in my church, it was more like, oh, you're going to be a mom. Boys, what are you going to do when you grow up? But that whole idea of there is a right way, it always, it was like I was living in this shadow of there's a right way, and how the freak am I going to find it? Like, I have no idea. And being who I am, which is someone that doesn't just want to do one thing, I want to do everything. Like, having this concept, this construct of there is a right way, and it's one thing, was so overwhelming for me. It was like I was, like you said, I was staring up at a mountain and saying, I don't know if I can do this, And I think I have pursued relentlessly trying to understand the world, the constructs of the world that we live in. Like, I don't take things at face value just because I'm naturally curious. And so once you go down that rabbit hole of deconstructing the constructs that you live in, there's so many things that we do that we put no thought behind, and yet we defend to the death.
Oh man, I will 100% agree with that. I think, they radically changed a lot of the way I think I live my life in some ways. And I think that I 100% had a lot of ideals growing up, and things that, one, were taught, and two, were formulated through things that happened to me. And it was, I think, the older I get, the more I go, why do I think that? Why did I do that?
Yeah.
And to the other part of it is like, there have been things I'm like, well, I don't like that, I'm changing that, and just do it. And it's like, that's such an interesting thing to think about. I've never thought about the children aspect that far, but I'm going to be quite honest, I feel quite checked, and actually a little ashamed, because there's been a part of me that has projected kind of myself onto my kids in some respects. I think I do, in a lot of ways, really open up for them to have that freedom, to let them feel their own sense of responsibility, and that it is there on them what they do, and not really try to formulate like who they are or what they do. But I think because I have come from such a lot of heartaches and pains and struggles, I don't want my kids to go through that. So I've tried to push them in some areas to help them have that grit. But in the same sense, I think I've kind of pushed some of myself on them, and that can be hard to live up to, because I've even seen it in them. We're like, we're not you. Like, we're not going to change like you. Like, we can't do that. And I think I had a sense of pride within myself because of all the things I've been able to overcome. I almost think I don't think consciously, but kind of subconsciously look down on people, because I'm like, well, you can't change. Like, you're weak. And I think I've projected a lot of these things onto my kids and just to other people. And I'm like, why do I do that?
And I think 99% 99% of the world doesn't have these conversations because we choose to we have learned so well to when I start to feel, you better punch that thing under the rug so fast.
Abort.
Because you can't show anyone that you're weak or that maybe you made a mistake or that maybe the path that you thought you were supposed to be on is not.
Yeah. Oh, this thing I told you I was doing, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm going this other way. And nobody's actually okay with saying that. They're like, oh my God, what are they going to think about me when I tell them I'm not doing that thing?
And so we had no idea you were going to go down this route. This has nothing to do with, well, actually it does. I think it's fascinating. You're so fascinated by the constructs of the world that we live in, which I think makes you a really good ad buyer because you're going, well, I know what these people are going to be formulating their thoughts on. So here's a great ad for you.
Or here's at least a good couple thought processes. Let's test them and figure out which one works.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it, like, as far as marketing goes, like building your avatars, right? Like, I think a lot of people skip that step because they're like, so here's why it's hard, right? One, either you've built a company because you are the avatar and you think you know everything, or you've built a company and you don't understand the avatar and you don't know how to understand the avatar.
Explain to people what the avatar is.
Okay, so your avatar is like your ideal customer, your ideal client. So ideally, like, you would start your company with the avatar in mind and you would say, I want to serve X person, right? Like, I want to serve moms who have kids 3 and under who are working part-time and they have an eye for design, right? So that's an avatar. Or I want to serve truck drivers who don't do short trips, they do cross-country trips, and they have a strong support system within the trucking industry, right? Like, you have to be so specific, and you don't start with a product, you start with the person that you want to serve, and then you say, what do they need? What are their problems? What keeps them up at night? What are they struggling with? And how can I support them? And products and services will come from that, right? I forgot what I was saying.
He was asking you about the avatar, and you were talking about kind of this avatar in the sense of Facebook ads.
Oh, right. Okay. So what I was saying was when you start with the avatar and you copyright from the perspective of the avatar, then you have so much more to pull from, right? And so you were saying, you could use that idea, that challenging the constructs in copywriting, saying, this mom is going to have these certain constructs, and therefore she's going to have these certain triggers, and you can write your ads in a way that draws her attention because those are the things that matter to her brain.
Wow.
Whereas, you put that same ad in front of somebody who isn't that avatar, and they're not even going to notice.
Scroll right on past.
So based on our conversation, you could be targeting females like you who were stay-at-home moms but had a drive outside of that to be something greater and develop products and services that help moms become something outside of just a stay-at-home mom because they aspire to something in business or whatever else it may be.
Yep.
And you develop those products and services around them, develop that copywriting that resonates, in this case, with you, because that was you were the avatar, and that would really probably do well if those products and services were helpful.
Yeah. I had this dream one time to make a whole line of products for moms that are convenience-based, where you can do it with one hand, because you're always carrying a baby in one hand. Yeah. And so if you can function with one hand, and moms get so good at it, but there are certain things that you have to do with two hands. But if you can convert those to one-handed things, someone please take that idea.
I've got the product for it, Britt.
Good.
We can start our business. It's a glove that goes on one hand that spawns into two hands.
Oh my gosh, it's
and you
genius.
Control two hands with one hand.
and it connects to your brain with the hole in the back of your head, like in the Matrix.
Okay.
Sounds pretty simple.
Look, mine was simple. It's just two hands controlled by one hand. She went neurological on it.
Yeah.
Which would be awesome.
Only 5 easy payments of $10,000.
$10 million.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Three Cheese Podcast. If you're enjoying this content, then please subscribe, rate, and review. This episode was sponsored by our company, Mac and Cheese Media, a video company that creates scroll-stopping videos that drive results for your business. If you're a business owner that wants to accomplish your goals through video, then visit our website at macandcheesemedia.com. Now back to the podcast. I'm kind of curious because within our company and what we want to be able to grow, like we want the people that work with us to be able to have their own things that, you know, what some companies could look at as a threat.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, the fact that you're working with the Harmon brothers and then you're also doing the same thing for other clients, like how do they handle that? How did that whole thing work? Because I don't think traditionally a lot of companies are okay with those kind of things because they can, you know, see it as a conflict. But I mean, just that culture, like I don't think a lot of companies do that or encourage that. So how did that work?
That's a really good
whole
question.
Ecosystem for you?
So Harmon Brothers is unlike basically any other company that I've ever heard of. I think there are a lot of other ones kind of on the front lines, but I'm obviously super familiar with the ins and outs of Harmon Brothers. So Harmon Brothers, they don't live small. Like a lot of companies, a lot of CEOs live very small, and they say, like exactly what you said, if you have a side hustle that is, you know, that threatens my ownership of your time, right? But Harmon Brothers is like, if you can go learn on other people and bring us your best stuff, we're winning, right?
Nice.
And I think that shift, it actually instills a lot of loyalty in me. They are like, let's work it out. Let's figure it out. You get what you want and we get what we want and have everybody be happy. And it's you have to not comply with like this rigidity mindset of like, you have to do it my way, right? It's
control.
We're going to get through this together, you know, like we're going to figure this out together. And it's awesome that you have, you know, and not only is it you go, you know, learn and bring us your best stuff. It's also, I'm really happy that you have another source of income. You know, if in any case we, you know, we have to cut back your hours or, you know, whatever, it actually really benefits a company to have their employees do other things.
Let's talk about this. With all those shifts and things happening, what's one struggle that was really like impactful for you guys that one either led to kind of like a success that you didn't see or it led to a failure that kind of you learned from and helped you guys shift during this whole thing?
One thing that I had to make a decision around was, am I going to move my family across the country and fulfill this dream that we've had for a decade or more? Or am I going to stay and develop my own career because it's on a trajectory that could take me very, very far? Like I kind of had to step back and say, I have to be intentional about this. I have to really, really, because clearly there's not only one way to fulfill the dream, right? We could have done other things. We could have bought land out there in a couple of years. We could have done a lot of different things, but it was like, no, after a lot of introspection, I'm willing to put this dream aside of being a writer to make this dream that is our shared dream and a reality. Because that power was in my hands, you know.
And what was your, like, when you finally made that? Do you remember when you were like, this is it?
Yeah, it was like a little part of me, because I had relentlessly pursued writing. Like I had volunteered, I had pulled all-nighters, I had pursued the education behind it. There was a lot of overtime I worked to be able to be in those writing retreats, and I knew that it was the right thing. Not necessarily like the right thing, like God, you know, said this is the right thing for you, but it was like, this is my desire and this is what I'm pursuing and I'm making this decision, rather than living passively and saying, well, this is what you guys want, so this is what we'll do.
Right.
And almost pushing that sadness off on other people.
Right. It wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
It absolutely wasn't their fault. And I just owned my sadness, and I sat in my sadness, and I let it go.
It's just the fact that it's like, okay, I'm making an intentional decision, and gosh, I'm losing something that means a lot to me, and that's sad. And I'm going to sit in it, I'm going to feel it, and then it's going to lead me forward, and I'm going to continue on, as opposed to
distracting yourself. Right?
Distracting yourself or shifting that. If you don't let yourself feel it, that was really sad that you had to leave that thing that you pursued so deeply, you can turn it and push it onto other people, like we were talking about, where it's like, I left my career so that my family could go to a dream. And you start pushing that to people, telling people that. And on the front end, some people think that's not like,
it's almost like
wow,
a badge of honor.
But there's some deeply rooted stuff that they haven't dealt with there, which is forcing that out of them.
You want to undermine your relationships, take that route. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you want to, if you take your decisions and you blame other people for them, good luck.
Such a good thing.
You cannot maintain healthy relationships and have that attitude.
No.
Yeah.
I love
The thing, just sit back for a second and prioritize prioritize your priorities, right? Like, what is the most important thing to you? And you can tell by where your time goes, right? And if your relationships are not the most important thing to you, then everything else will fall away. Everything else will feel like a waste of time, because the only thing that matters in this life is relationships. It's the only thing you take with you after this life. It's the only thing. I learned a very important lesson about emotions and about the importance of emotions. So when you feel something, it is your body telling you something. And so if you're constantly pushing that away, you're not receiving the communication that will benefit you, right? So when that happens, just imagine that you are going into a room and you see a friend, right? And that friend is a representation of this emotion. But when you go into a room and you see a friend, what do? You go over to them and you sit with them, right? And you talk to them, right? You don't ignore them. You don't pretend like they're not there. So when you feel sadness, or when you feel frustration, or when you feel maybe some deeper emotions like betrayal or
shame, guilt.
Shame. Shame's a huge one. We could have a podcast just on that.
Let's do it.
Then you sit with it. You talk with it. You say, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel this way? What is it telling me? What are the things that I'm not seeing because I'm rushing through this? What am I pushing away, and why am I pushing it away? And just sitting with that and just pondering on that will teach you so many things, and it will help you move through the emotion, and it will help you come out the other side a better person.
You honor it.
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like it's very applicable to all of us, and me, especially, I think like a feeling that I, for a long time, and still struggle to like fully feel and just like kind of talk through or think through and everything, and just kind of like sit in it and accept it. It's like anxiety that we all feel, and me especially, just like, why do I feel this way? And I think the harder you fight against emotions like that, almost the worse it gets, or the more consistent it is. But it's like the more that you think about why this feeling is here, and just kind of accepting that I feel that way almost makes it better. And just talking about it at the same time, it's just like a way to like get through it and relieve it, and then it becomes less and less. It
goes back to the thing that you're talking about, and that quote that I said, your life moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Like, what are you thinking on? Like, if you do have this emotion, yeah, sure, think about it, feel it, but don't continue to dwell in it. Like, accept it for what it is, and be able to like pick up from that and learn from it and move on. Mm-hmm. And that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And if you see emotions as signals, then you can do a lot more. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people are worried that if they sit in their emotions, they'll get stuck, and the fact is, emotions are trying to tell you something to help you move forward. And it's only through them that you do move forward.
you learn so much by doing that, because guess what? Next time you feel it, you recognize it quicker. You sit in it, you feel it. Oh, man.
I've been here before.
Woo,
We
that's
already know
yeah, I've been here before. Wow, that did make me angry. Why does that make me angry? Oh, I don't know why that makes me angry. Okay, maybe you start catching that before you make that reaction, and that makes it powerful, because then you're able to communicate with people. When you're able to communicate healthily, you can build that relationship. And so we have tried to really, we say a lot here, like our personal development and our mental health are just as important as our business development, if not far more important. And so we try to talk about these things because, man, you build a company with a lot of employees that can all process like that, you can change the world real fast, honestly, because you're not fighting against these confines that are built that inhibit us from actually growing together and just working together. Right? You said there's room for everyone here, especially if we're all working together. So what's your proudest moment that you've ever had
Proudest moment
in your career?
Proudest moment in my career. Okay.
That's a little better, a little easier to answer.
Okay. So when I was writing for Harmon Brothers, I wrote a concept for a client, and that concept was chosen to be the video. And the video was written, we wrote it together, and it was produced, and then it went out as an ad. And when I saw that ad, when I saw this concept that I had dreamed in my head and figured out how to write on paper, and was now a video that was being put in front of millions of people, I can't even describe what it was like for me. It was like I felt like I had changed the world. That sounds so stupid, but I felt like something inside of me that hadn't existed before was now a real thing. I was a creator.
It was almost like a child.
Like almost, yeah. I mean, I was going to say my other proudest moment was when I had one of my kids, but birthing a child is massive and changes everything. But like to know that I had the power to dream of something and make it really come true. And it wasn't only me, right? It wasn't like I dreamt this and I made it and I put it out there and everyone ignored it, but I was still proud of my little thing. It was like my idea set in motion a series of events that affected so many people and had this outcome that millions of people are seeing.
Yeah, because what you created had to emotionally resonate with humans. And that just makes you feel really cool to know that you created something that resonated with millions of people.
Had impact.
Right, impact.
Impact is massive. And I think impact is basic to our need to be seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody wants to be seen. They may not want to be called out, right? They may not feel comfortable with the attention, but they want to know that they're seen, right? That people see who they really are. And that was my seen moment.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, so what would you tell others who have wanted to start a business or jump out from being maybe a mother and do what you did, or somebody who just has this passion to take this leap of faith into an entrepreneurial journey, but hasn't been able to start yet? They have that passion there, but they haven't been able to figure out how to take that leap. What would you tell them?
Oh, this is my sage advice moment. I would say that, a little bit of tough love. It's not going to be easy, and don't think that it will. And if you are getting into it with the idea of only thinking of the end without considering the journey, number one, you're going to be sorely, sorely disappointed, and you may give up on it. And number two, you're going to miss out on most of it. You're going to miss out on the growth. You're going to miss out on the joy of the journey.
Yeah.
Right. I think that I didn't necessarily know that starting out, and I was slapped in the face a lot of times. But I was smart enough to say, whoa, this is what it's about. It's not about where I get to. It's about, it's the climb. Right?
Thank you, Miley.
You have to be intentional every day. You can't be so focused on the end that you miss out on the moments, because the moments are where you grow. The moments are where you connect. The moments are what your life is made of, right? And so, like, if you have this dream of leaving your 9-to-5, or if you have this dream of starting to build a career, like, I don't like the idea of making things feel so idealized that you have higher expectations than you should, right? Like, expect for things to hurt and that you'll grow from them, right? And then it's like, ooh, that hurt. What is this telling me? Right?
Right.
Then it's like, then you're extracting everything you can out of those opportunities, out of those mistakes, out of those sins, and you grow exponentially faster.
Yo, y'all, everyone go sin and make mistakes so that you can learn faster. That's the number one.
I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah. Go sin.
No, I think this is...
Learn more.
I think this is... that's amazing that you said that, because it's so congruent with what other business owners have come on here and said, and something that we talk about all the time before, and it makes us feel close to people when they say it. If you can't look at these moments along the way and appreciate them and celebrate them, and then also learn and just understand that there are going to be mistakes made along the way, and things are going to really hurt, and you might have a panic attack here, but then you bounce back from it and you learn how to bounce back quicker the next time. If you can't enjoy that journey, then
Don't do it.
don't do it. There's no point. Don't go on it, because and if you're on it right now and you realize that you've just been glossing over this journey, looking at that thing that you wanted to get to, and you haven't been experiencing life, stop for a second. Take a deep breath and go, how can I go tomorrow, the rest of today, and appreciate what it is that I'm doing?
Because when you've been through business, you realize that business is not about money. Yes, it's a motivator. Yes, it is. It keeps food on your table and a roof over your head, but you can do anything for money. You can be a prostitute. You can drive a car. You can do anything for money, right? What do you do for money? That's what defines who you are, right? And if you are going into business because you have that dream of, I want to make $10,000 a month, or I want, any of those markers, right? Like, you're not mature enough in your business journey, because you're starting out, to understand that the things you do on a daily basis and not the money you earn is what defines who you are, right? And and that's one thing that we talked about earlier that I didn't get to say, was that's one place that employers really mess up, is they think that they're doing their employees a service by paying them. They think, all I have to do is pay you and you'll do whatever I want. And that's not the case. Like, they don't owe you like any more than what the average person could do in that job, right? So if you've got somebody going above and beyond, you don't deserve that above and beyond, right? They are doing that because they are growing from that, right? Like, that paycheck is not why they're doing it. They're not going above and beyond because you're paying them a paycheck, right? So, like, it ties back to this as well. Like, if your whole goal in going into business is just to make money, you're going to learn a lot more than that. And my hope for you is that business is a microcosm of life, right? It's like your entire life, but it's shrunk down into this little world of business. And you're going to learn so much more than just making money.
It's good. We talk about it all the time. It's like you take life, and sometimes it takes people like years to learn these things. We learn them in like 3 weeks, massive life, like shifting things because we have to in order to keep going.
Pressure.
And it's been really cool. That's been probably the most beneficial thing, honestly, if we think about it, about this business, is how much it's caused us as 3 owners to have to shift, change, get better as humans, get better at communicating, get better at meeting each other's needs so that we can support each other, and get better at learning who we are so that we can better serve others.
Yeah. So when the business isn't developing, or you might not be making the money that you want, you are always developing yourself. So that's
great. I think in the beginning of this business, I had a different mindset, and now that I feel like I've continued to shift my thought process into this way of like, this personal development is as important, or if not more important, and it's made me a better husband, a better father, just a better me. And it's because of being pushed off into these ledges of uncertainty, and also because of the people around me. I think that's something that, a lot of people don't talk about either. Like, the people that you have around you is very, very important. Not only how you deal with emotions and how, your self-talk and how you deal with things, but how the other people around you speak into you. What are the things that they encourage you with? How do they hold you accountable? Are they there in those times where, you don't believe in yourself, and they're lifting you up and pointing out the areas where you have been successful? And it's like, a lot of times you don't have those kind of support systems around you, and you kind of silo yourself off, and then you kind of get estranged back from being able to become truly who you were meant to be.
Well, Britt, thanks for being on here in an effort to help, encourage you to enjoy the journey. I want you to know that your journey, from my perspective, is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And it's incredible that you have raised 4 kids in a family, are helping be a leader in your family and renovate your home and help inspire your kids, alongside being one of the best ad buyers, the best ad buyer I know.
That's a small group of people.
Okay, you don't know how many ad buyers I know. Secondarily, I think you're one of the best ad buyers, and I know that because you work for one of the best ad buying companies in the USA. So, congrats on how far you've come. Congrats on, thinking about a dream and seeing it through, because some people dream something their whole life and never achieve it, and you've done a big one. And I think you're about to do another one, because for the listeners, she mentioned taking her family of 6 with an 8-year-old on a 6-month journey on the Appalachian Trail in 2025. And we can't even go into
Hold
that.
me to it, guys.
But that is it. Yeah, that is a dream if I've ever heard one. And just know that you've been super valuable to all of us today. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you. I've watched you guys' journey, Ewan's journey.
Humans.
As you've grown as
y'all's
journey.
Y'all's, there you go.
Humans.
And I really am inspired by how you work together, how you lean on each other. That's massive to me, because that's trust. I cannot. It's hard to grasp how much trust you guys share, and I absolutely love it. I love visiting with you and just seeing how strong your relationships together are.
We work on it every day.
Yes, we do.
It's like a second marriage.
Well,
Exactly.
but
It kind of is, yeah.
I mean, this is, we actually spend more time together than we actually do with our families. I mean, when you have a work and you go to, that same job every day, like, are the relationships and people that you have there, like, are they reflective of, like, the person that you want to become? And it's like, man, we spend a lot of time together. We better love each other. We better trust each other.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful for you being here, because, like Austin said, like, from my perspective, like, you're in this agency and it's like, dang, like, I want to be able to do those things, and I want to be able to, make that kind of impact with the things that I make in the world. And, the fact that you are so willing to come and spend time with us, to speak into our business, to be open and real and, like, totally authentic, that to me is something that's not very widely done by a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people in business want to like share the accolades and not their heart.
I never make mistakes.
All right, well, good. And that makes me feel better. But no, like
No,
you're
that's
very
not true about me.
authentic, and you're very real. And I think for me, that just continues to encourage me to live out of that authenticity.
I love that. I think that's so important. If that's your North Star, then God can do so many great things with you, and you can do so many great things with your life, right? Like going back, life is about relationships, and if you can't be authentic, how can you connect? I think that's I love that you brought that up.
Thanks so much for listening to the Three Cheese Podcast. We hope you really enjoyed this episode. Please rate, review, and subscribe on whichever platform you use to get your podcasts. If you have any thoughts or feedback, shoot an email to podcast@macandcheesemedia.com. That's macandcheesemedia.com. Find us on social at 3 Cheese Podcast. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we will see you next time.